You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
You are listening to the only wrestling podcast by fans that don't hate wrestling. You are listening to the Wrestling Rewind. A lot to get through this week. Before we went on air, we were talking loads of nonsense, but the main thing we were talking about is that there's just so much wrestling to the point that we forgot that there's like Crown Jewel on, and then Double or Nothing, and then probably something next week, and so on and so on. So, you know, we're trying to get on top of things, but something that we're also trying to get on top on, finally, for me, is YouTube. We're finally back on YouTube, folks. It's been a 2-year gap, and now we found a way to put not only current content, but our entire backlog is also going up on YouTube very, very slowly, but in the very near future. It's happening in waves. So if you're listening to us on Phoenix FM, if you're listening to us on the Two Pinch channel, if you're listening to us wherever you are, because, you know, we appreciate the numbers are great, so we know you're listening. What I say is please go over to YouTube there, where you can find all the content free. There's tons of videos there now anyway, but there's a bunch of content that isn't on YouTube but will be. And there's a great community over there as well, which I've also recently discovered are things because they were commenting, and I didn't know they were commenting, so we're responding to those as well. So yeah, but I am not alone. I am joined by the one, the only Mr. 1-0, Martin Herty. How are things, Martin?
Grand, Dara. The week, you know what? I didn't think the week was off to a great start. Ever since I started back at work full time, I haven't really been able to get to training or get to the gym, and my body kind of seized up, and I managed to hurt my back this week. No joke. Sitting on a chair, yawning. Just yawned, and something to my back went, and it's been crippled all week. But no, I'm in a great form because we've got Double or Nothing this weekend. It looks like an amazing card, but also the other reason I'm in tremendous mood is because of the review we're doing this week, Lockdown 2007, and it has finally given me something that I thought I would never find. A gimmick match done worse than the AEW exploding ring barbed wire death match. It was such a relief to know that.
I would say I would say they're very much on par.
No.
But,
at least they used actual explosives. No matter how weak and wimpy they were, at least they didn't just flick the lights on and off.
Well, when we get to it, I will have to say that when I hope that as we get further into TNA, you start to see why my aversion to AEW nonsense gets triggered very quickly and very easily. But anyway, that's unfair. Like, it's not their fault. They tried. They did what they could.
I mean, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it. Yeah. So look, as I said, there's a lot to get through, Martin, this week. We're trying to keep up, as it were. Our WrestleMania review, I'm aware some people are probably like, you guys missed WrestleMania. We didn't miss WrestleMania. We're just waiting for Dave to be around to talk about it. But
Dave was one of our men on the ground. Like we have to have his perspective.
So what we might end up doing is we might end up just doing the show with ourselves and then have Dave in at some point, kind of drop shipping in. But that review is coming because it's obviously probably going to be 2 shows or an extended show. But yeah, we kind of didn't want to do the show without Dave. So we're going to try to reach out, get him on the show, and then see what happens from there.
Speaking of 2 shows or extended shows, did you see SummerSlam is going to 2 nights now?
Brilliant. I think that's a great idea.
I so few people share this view with me, and this isn't a WWE thing because I didn't even like it when New Japan were doing it. I am not a fan of the 2-night.
No, I'll be honest with you, man. I'll be honest with you. Like, I think it's great because I just cannot stand long wrestling shows anymore. I mean, I never could, but like, thoughts of 8 or 9 hours of wrestling in a row is literally hell.
But it doesn't need to be 8 or 9 hours. You cut the fat, you know.
Yeah, but then
I think what happens with 2 nights is because 2 nights, then you need to kind of pad it out, and you end up with the faffy, needless matches when it's over 2 nights.
I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying, and I think there is a case to be made for both sides. I think WrestleMania being 2 nights was a great idea. Honest to God, like, I think it really is worth it. But I do think it should just be that. But they kind of want to make SummerSlam equal to WrestleMania, which I get. So in order to do that, you can't really have like, oh well, if it's equal, then why is there not 2 nights? Which is probably the thought process here. But at the same time as well, like, if it's bad, they can always just go back to 1 night. But I don't know. I mean, like, if I was,
it's kind of like a step down. Then it's like everyone wants Raw to go back 2 hours, but they can't do it because it would be, it would be seen to be. Although, like, we had a good discussion about what's going to happen when it goes to Netflix. Yeah,
they probably will. Like, I think Netflix is going to be a very interesting kind of chance to relaunch a lot of things that we thought WWE couldn't do, or they were too afraid to do. I mean, like, they're locked in with contracts and ad time and all that kind of stuff. But Netflix, it gives them a lot of freedom. And I think this move is probably them walking themselves into a situation where they're like, oh no, we need to, we've talked a big game here. We need to kind of back it up. I think that's probably what this is. But it does present an opportunity. Here's what I mean. If this is just, as you said, a faffy 2-night thing where they have a padded out and there's some garbage there, not a fan of that. If there's like random concerts and stuff, not a fan of that. However, if it's used correctly in such a way that it achieves, like, I think WrestleMania this year was paced quite well for the most part. I haven't watched it on TV. I will watch it on TV. But as far as a live show, it was actually very well paced and flew along for what it was. And if SummerSlam can do that, well, great, But if it can't, and if it's just like lumbering along, well, then that's really bad. But, I'm all for trying something once, and they haven't tried this yet, so I think it'll be interesting to see. But here's another thing as well, Martin. If I was flying over to the States, or there's one thing about being in the US, like, close to it. There's another thing about being on the other side of the country, because you might as well be in Ireland at that point. But
yeah,
if you're flying from Europe to it, I would much rather be like, I'm actually going to watch. I'm happy to get 2 nights of wrestling for this, and 2 nights of a big show, because you're probably going to go to like SmackDown or Raw anyway. So it is a bit of fan service in a way, but then again, the tickets are probably going to be astronomical. So I mean, you're screwed no matter which way you do it. But I do think it's an interesting move to try it. So see how it goes for this year, and then if it's awful, or if it is like a price gouging waste of time, well then. I'll be against it too, but I'm not against trying something once, particularly when it's a shake-up like this.
Oh yeah, look, if it works, that's the way it'll be from now on. I mean, sure, from the WWE's point of view, it's pretty straightforward. You're getting 2 stadium filled with people purchasing tickets and purchasing T-shirts, but then again, and everything else,
But also from a fan perspective, just say you have. Okay, we'll make it as base as possible, right? Just say you're a young family and you're bringing like your 10-year-olds and your wife and you're going, and maybe your mate's going as well, right? That's what 6 people, and you can't get tickets for both nights, you couldn't get the tickets for the one night. Now you have double the opportunity to get the tickets. You don't have to go to both nights. You can go to one. Just like when I was at WrestleMania, there was a stag party happening in front of me on night one, and and there was like 6 lads, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we haven't watched wrestling in years, and we were in the area, and we just decided to go because he's getting married tomorrow, right?" That was awesome, because it was like you can't really do that if it's one night because the tickets are so rare. But with 2 nights, it opens up the franchise really and allows you to kind of have those.
I always wondered how the fellas, like during the height of the Attitude Era, I always wondered how the fellas managed to get all those tickets in a row, when they'd show up with a sign that said, "The Rock is the great one," but it was each gay holding up a single letter, a T, a T, or it's like, man, how did you manage to book 24 seats in a row?
I think they used to just stand outside the stadium and just buy the tickets.
Or do you think it's one guy shows up with all the letters and just walks along the row handing them out?
Yeah, but then you run the risk of somebody who's no crack.
Yeah, or somebody gets up to the bathroom and comes back and switch seats, and then instead of saying The Rock, it says the Orc.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. It opens up some cool things that WWE probably weren't able to do before, and I'm always for more wrestling when it's warranted. But yeah, we'll see how they use it. Like, it's another opportunity to pack in 140,000 fans over 2 nights. That's a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot of money.
Especially as you were saying with what the tickets are costing nowadays.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I mean, it's definitely a unique move. I didn't think WWE would do, but then they keep doing a lot of things that I don't think they do. But again, this would never happen under a Vince McMahon era. Let's put it that way. For better or worse, the landscape of wrestling is definitely changing. One thing I wanted to get your thoughts on before we jump back into the past is a potential look to the future, Martin. So the numbers for Dynamite haven't been great. The ratings haven't been great. It looks like there's going to be the contract is going to be interesting for the TV deal, but we haven't seen that yet. So I am interested to see what happens there. But All In is coming up soon.
That's right.
And we had a great time last time. You had a less good time coming home, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For fans that don't know, Martin was stuck in London for like 3 days afterwards.
One time I decided to get the plane, and I don't know how long, and the international plane system decides to just shut down.
That was crazy. That was still the craziest thing to happen in a while.
I was stuck in a wee hotel because obviously everywhere in London was booked then, with people couldn't get home. Yeah. So I ended up staying 3 days in this wee hotel way, like 20 odd miles away from Luton Airport, out in the middle of nowhere, no shops, no buses, no nothing.
I don't know. I don't know how I got home from that, because I was planning to get the ferry home that night, because my plane was at 9 p.m. and I was like, okay, I can risk it, or I can get they call it the rail and sail, right? And I was sitting in Euston, and I was like, okay, I can either risk going to Gatwick and hopefully the flight will fly, or I can go for this 36-hour journey home.
Oh my God.
Boy, am I glad. The higher risk, just and the flight somehow took off. But yeah, I didn't envy you, Martin. But so here's what I was getting at. So AEW is coming up soon, and still on the fence about going. But I will go. I will buy all of us front row tickets. Not all of us, but I mean me and Martin and Dave. not the audience. Sorry, folks. I will buy us front row tickets if this happens.
Go on.
It looks like Tony Khan is going to wrestle.
It's not in a million years. It's not happening. No,
Tony, if you're listening, I will buy 3 front row tickets for this show because I want to see this more than anything ever. It will be the worst thing ever put on screen.
not in a million years.
Do you not think so? Because I've heard this from a couple not sources, but like a couple of outlets where they're implying that this is a thing. Like, what do you think are the pros and cons of this, and how likely do you actually think it is?
There are no pros. I mean, the only pro is that it would generate a lot of interest, but not good interest. It would generate your kind of interest. Like, it would. The interest would be people tuning in to see what a disaster it was. So there are no pros. In terms of cons, I mean, like, I don't think it's going to happen because Tony is fully aware of his own limitations. He's been the owner and booker for 5 years now and has resisted. He's probably the only wrestling booker in history who has resisted not only putting himself in the shows, but centering the whole world of the promotion around himself. And I think he knows that he's not a performer, you know? Even when he does stuff, like, again, the thing with Jack Perry, he never said anything during that. He didn't even have entrance music or anything. He came out and Jack Perry cut a promo and Jack Perry punched him. And then, I mean, when you're taking a Meltzer driver, I've never taken one, but I assume you just hold on for dear life and let it happen to you.
I think so, yeah. It's like pile drivers, so you just have to hope that the guy knows how to do it.
So I'll tell you what I do think is going to happen. And it might not necessarily be all in, but I think my guess for the direction of this thing with the Young Bucks kind of taking over while he's out injured is they're going to kind of run roughshod over the tag division and continue to, you know, run the shows in their own image and, you know, abusing their powers as VPs. And then Tony is going to announce that he's brought in someone who can deal with them. And that's when we'll see the debut of Motor City Machine Guns. So I think that's where it's going. But that would actually be pretty good, to be fair. But it still doesn't square the circle of Jungle Boy, because Jungle Boy and Tony Khan are about the same height and weight and ability. Definitely not.
So I think they could work a match, and I would be there front row, laughing the whole time.
But that's the problem. Everyone would. So,
well, here's the thing: everybody would go.
Yeah, but you don't need people to show up once. You need people to show up consistently, and that's a way to get people to show up once and then never show up again.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I don't know. It's well, okay. I don't know, like, because it will do good sales. The show, it will. Do you not think having your first match in front of 80,000 people? Or what was it? It was 80,000, wasn't it? For last time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's something he could definitely brag on. And he might as well. While
he might as well not. Again, like, I think Tony's a lot more aware than, like, Twitter trolls, you know, would have you believe.
No,
I think
but
he's aware of
his
limitations as a performer.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is, it's like they all eventually do it. I mean, Dixie didn't do it for years, and all of a sudden, I think it's something. I need to come up with a cool term for it, but all owners or presidents of wrestling eventually. I think it's because they want to be wrestlers. Honestly, I think that's what it is. They secretly want to be wrestlers, so when the opportunity presents, like, I mean, Vince didn't want to be in wrestling at all. For years, he pretended that he wasn't even involved with the company, and then when it was revealed that he actually was from the Montreal Screwjob, he became like, the whole show became about him. Dixie did the same thing. Eric Bischoff did the same thing. I think it just reaches that point, and it's almost like, again, I could be wrong with Tony doing this, but based on historical precedent, I think once the line is crossed, like once the seal is broken, once they're on TV, once they're a performer in any way, it's like a cancer and it just runs through them completely. And that's or like a
Well,
bug or virus. And
Tony's
I just feel like think about it, right? Since we've seen Tony Khan take the bump, right? He's wore the neck brace poorly in other things. He's cut like not like crazy promos on WWE.
He
He's done,
hasn't cut pro like he was on that was a real life interview
no, that was a
on
promo,
a
dude.
TV show.
That was
you
a
know,
promo. That was a promo. That was a promo, right?
But it was
And-
a real life interview on a TV. It wasn't on Dynamite or Collision.
I know, but it was still a promo. He was still trying to work, you know? What I'm saying to you is it's the Tony Khan now is not the Tony Khan of 2019 who would look at this and go, "Holy Christ, what is this? What is this?" You know? And that's my concern. It's like the Dixie Carter when she was getting put through the table isn't the Dixie Carter I met. You know? It's like there's this weird progression where they work themselves into a shoot, you know? Or even look at Vince Russo. Vince Russo never wanted to do it either when he was working as Vic Viper. He never ever wanted to be on TV. He didn't even want to talk about being on TV. And then he ended up winning the title in WCW. So it's just like all I'm saying is like I do believe you were right, and what you laid out makes way more sense, and I would actually personally like to see that more because I love the guns. But at the same time, if historical precedent does show us anything, it shows us that man, this could happen, and if it happens, I'm going to be a fair amount poorer because I need to buy 3 front row tickets. You know,
I think your savings are safe.
we'll see. But either way, you win. Either way, Martin, you win.
No, I think your savings are safe. I think he's learned from all those previous. Like, who was the only time it actually ever worked was with Vince, and even then,
even then it was limited.
It wasn't because the
limited,
matches were great. It's because the heat with Austin was so like people were so invested in that.
Well, no, you could argue it worked with Bischoff as well. I mean, when he got put through that table, like he got jackknifed, and it still looks vicious.
Yeah, but
you know?
that was great. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the spot is fine, but when they start putting themselves in extended feuds and matches, like Bishop getting put through a table, awesome. Bishop doing his goddamn karate dancing around the ring for 20 minutes, like nobody.
I wouldn't mind. He's a legitimate karate black belt, and yet
he is,
he's
but
awful.
He is, yeah,
weird. It makes no sense. I don't understand it.
People are legitimate combat sports people, and they think that translates to wrestling, and it
doesn't.
It's a different thing.
It's a completely different thing. But I don't know. I mean, like, look, I'm still on the fence about it. Like I'll just say right now, I think it's a terrible idea, and if it happens, I mean,
I'm not even worried about it. Beyond.
If it happens, it'll be the greatest thing that's ever happened to AEW. But it will also be the
last.
It will also be the last. It'll be like the Titanic hitting the iceberg and it's going down, because like you can't come back from that, you know. But I want to get your thoughts on it. I wanted to bring it up because I've heard it now from 3 or 4 different shows, and I'm like, oh, there's something to this. Maybe this is not good. But no, I will say
shows. All it takes is one person to say it, and then the other shows just report on that person saying it.
Well, we're not reporting from it. We're just talking about the idea. Although I will say, 3 front row tickets if it happens. I'm going to go on record.
I need to find a way of like, how do I limit your internet access? I can send you like loads of fake articles announcing that Tony Khan's having a match, and then I can get my front row ticket, and then we can go and see the actual event. But that obviously doesn't happen.
We go to the actual event anyway. But like, you know, it would just be a lot funnier if, you know, on the hard camera.
I don't want it to be funny. I want it to be. It's throw. The only time I want it to be funny is when Orange Cassidy's there.
That's true.
It. That's beyond that, I've no interest in laughing.
I hope Dalton Castle is actually there, because I mean,
he is amazing.
He's showing up more in AEW now, which is nice. Not too much, because obviously, as we said a couple of weeks ago, I mean, he's all Ring of Honor have.
Yeah.
So you gotta kind of be careful. But it was great to see him on Dynamite a little while ago. That was fun.
Oh, and he's so good.
He's
Like
so good.
that
He's really good.
whole story he had with his boys been stolen was just
Oh, that's brilliant.
it's actually worth paying for Honor Club to see that. I'm really excited to see him in AEW. But of course, then half the problem is that they've got so many guys that who do you spotlight and who gets time and who.
Tony
Like
Khan.
the one thing I don't want to happen is all in the next year to be a whole load of like multi-man matches.
Yeah, God no. I really
justify
I
getting
can't stand
everyone
that.
on the show.
I can't stand that. I mean, that's the one thing. Like even in Lockdown that we're going to talk about, the only multi-man match that I actually enjoy is Lethal Lockdown. And like War Games is kind of the same thing, but that's a bit trying as well. Lethal Lockdown I think is the best way to actually do it because it gives everybody enough time to do things. But a multi-man tag team match, like a traditional Survivor Series match, I hate those matches more than anything.
Do you ever watch the old Survivor Series
I hate it so much.
pay-per-views?
They are so painful.
All Survivor Series
They are
matches.
so painful. It's like, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. So yeah, that was the one thing I'd say about All In last year.
That was
just way too
wild.
many
Talk about a flex from McMahon. So McMahon invented Survivor Series to have a Thanksgiving pay-per-view to counter-program Starrcade.
Yeah.
Starrcade was WCW's big thing.
Biggest
So-
thing, like their WrestleMania.
It was their biggest show of the year. So McMahon invented a pay-per-view to counter-program Starrcade, and then he told all the pay-per-view providers that if you show Starrcade instead of Survivor Series, I will not give you WrestleMania. So like it's one thing to counter-program a WCW pay-per-view, but to counter-program it with the worst, most boring makeup of a pay-per-view you've ever seen, of 5 multi-man tag matches for every match. Like, talk about a flex. Like, not only am I going to counter-program and beat your biggest pay-per-view of the year, I'm going to do it with the worst dung you've ever seen.
It's so Vince McMahon though.
Oh, it is, yeah. It's not enough for him to win. He has to insult you while he wins.
Oh, it's too funny. It's too funny. Oh my God, it's hilarious.
But
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So we're going to switch gears here. We're going to go into the time machine. We're going to April 15th, 2007 in St. Charles, Missouri at the Family Arena. Attendance 6,000 people. And to be fair, to put this into context, this was a weird thing. Well, not a weird thing. It was a notable thing for TNA because they didn't really do this at the time. They were in the Impact Zone mainly in Orlando, Florida. So they were kind of going outside their comfort zone here. It was for Lockdown. Every war ends in the cage. So for anybody who doesn't know, TNA had a pay-per-view, and they should bring it back. Had a pay-per-view every once a week. Sorry, not once a week and then once a month. But once a year, they would do a pay-per-view where every single match was inside the cage, except for the last match on the card, which was a Lethal Lockdown match, which was the cage was still there, but then they'd put a roof on it, and the roof would have weapons, and that was basically it.
Dara,
So,
is the reason every match was a cage match because the type of cage they have, they
It's too hard to take off.
erect and assemble and disassemble in between matches? Is that the reason they were just like, all right, let's just put it up once and all the matches will be in the cage?
I actually wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be, but I've actually seen this cage in person.
Yeah.
I saw it at the Impact Zone, and then I saw it in there was a Dublin house show where they had it, which was actually pretty cool. And
to be fair to them, it's a very solid structure. Like, it's not like do you remember the old blue WWF cage? You could see it wobbling as they were like climbing onto stuff. It's a very solid structure to have.
Yeah, it's a really, really good cage. It's actually probably my favorite looking cage. But if you notice, what I like about it is when the X Division match is happening, the lads can actually use the cage to do stuff off it because there's like more holes within the actual mesh. So it's not like
Yeah,
it's not like
bigger gaps as well, so you can really get a foothold for like springing off it and stuff.
and you can also see. It's not like a big red cage or something like that where you can't see anything.
The big milk crate, whatever that was about.
The worst thing ever. But yeah, no, I think you're probably right here, but it also adds like a unique thing because it's weird. WWE, you think? Remember when you were in their bad period, like their really really bad period, and they were just doing random nonsense. I'm shocked that they never did this. No company ever did this kind of thing where they're like, oh yeah, okay, every match is a cage match. I think it's cool.
I think it kind of dilutes it. Like, it was really, really cool for the start, for the X Division match. It was awesome for it. And then, like, obviously you needed it for, like, the main event because it's the whole raison d'etre. And then you could even justify it for the electric, air quotations, cage match. But there was several matches in this. The other way sometimes we talk about Hell in a Cell just being match in a cell.
Yes.
There were several matches of this during this that were just match in a cage. Like the cage didn't even really come into play.
Match in a cage.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound as bad because it is a match in a cage.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, it's like I think it adds something to this. It's one thing that specifically happens with TNA. It's a TNA thing. Like it's like when you're flipping through. And it's one of the only bad things. It is the only real bad thing about them not using the 6-sided steel anymore. When you're watching TNA at this point, you are fundamentally know from the moment you flick it on that you are watching TNA. It's a unique identifier, and I think this pay-per-view being its own thing really helps it. I mean, I think it's great, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, like it's fair enough. I suppose you could argue that, like, I mean, every UFC match happens in a cage. But it's not necessarily a gimmick. It's just
it's not a gimmick. It's just where
what the ring is for the night.
Yeah,
yeah. It just depends how you look at it. Look, like at no stage was it like bad or off-putting. There was just some. I just thought there were some matches that happened in it that could have just been ordinary matches. But look, if that's...
what is cool though? I have to give credit to the TNA camera crew. They're so much better than the WWE camera crew at actually shooting a cage match. Because the holes are a little bit bigger, they're actually able to shoot inside the ring and get really, really good shots, which WWE have figured out how to do it, but it took a very long time to get there.
They had a couple of shots that I was looking at them going, have they a fella in there?
In the ring, yeah. I thought that too, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I know. It's just because they're able to get the camera right in with the... So yeah, I mean, look, it has its advantages. I thought maybe the presence of the cage in there the whole time maybe warned me a wee bit. But again, it's just how you look at it. Like I was saying, every UFC match is a cage match. If you just accept that that's just what the ring is, what the arena is for the night, without expecting every match to be a cage match. Although there was some confusion with some of the rules, were all the matches escape the cage, or were they pin, or...
Yeah, now somewhere specifically what's known as an escape match.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
The blindfold one confused me when one of the fellas started climbing the cage. Like,
don't worry, okay.
The blindfold match escape the cage?
We'll get to that. Okay, so the first match was obviously, that escape match. But there was a pre-match, or a pre-show match with Serotonin and VKM, which I'm kind of sad we didn't get to see because that would have been cool. But it was 3 minutes, so we didn't miss that much. First match that was on TV was Chris Sabin, who defeated Jay Lethal, who was accompanied with Kevin Nash, Sunday Dutt, Alex Shelley, and Shark Boy. This was an escape match for the TNA X Division Championship. It was about 15 minutes, and Shelley would eventually defeat Jay Lethal to retain. This match, again, like perfect way to open the show. X Division guys in there at their peak. This is peak Motor City Machine Guns as well, going against each other. And there's one thing about them being a team, but when they go against each other as well, it's nearly even better.
I couldn't believe they weren't the guns at this stage.
No,
because they are so smooth and so just in sync. Like when I sort of was reading up on some of the background for it, when I saw that they weren't even the Motor City Machine Guns at this stage, I was like, well, if you saw that match, as soon as they walked backstage, you'd make them a tag team.
That's kind of what happened.
Right, well, there you go.
That's kind of what happened. They would be a tag team, probably in the next 4 or 5 months.
Well, like their chemistry and their intuition, just the way they clicked, like, and obviously they have that incredible, like, innovative offense that they do.
So it was in the summer. That's kind of when it happened. So yeah, about 3 months after this. So you were spot on.
Look, they were perfect for this. This is such a great match. This is one of the matches of the night. You're talking about people flicking channels and you need something to show that this is TNA.
Yeah.
Like, Six-Sided Ring does that, but I think even more so the X Division does it. Because it's not just high flying. There is something else. There is something almost indefinable, but there is an extra quality to the X Division matches that makes them really stand out and is uniquely TNA.
No, absolutely. It's one of those things where you're watching, and that's why, when they moved away from it, it was such a shame. But that they've gone back to it, it's even better. And look, it's great. Chris Sabin's probably one of the best X Division champions of all time.
He's brilliant. I'll tell you one other thing. This match made me really want to see. When are we going to get Black Machismo in AEW?
Oh, no.
Dude is awesome.
Black Machismo would be a couple of years down the road, but we can do it. He's great. He is. Really, Jay Lethal is on fire at this point. They're all they're at their peak around this time. So
sorry, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but this only came into my head there when we were talking about Black Machismo. So for anyone who doesn't know, Black Machismo is Jay Lethal, but basically his gimmick is he's just the Macho Man.
Yes.
But I was working at Balmoral at the weekend last weekend, and there was a wee kid there. He was only 10, 11 years old, and he was wearing like a big hat and coloured sunglasses. And I says, "Oh, you look a bit like the Macho Man." And he said, "Yeah, that's what I was going for. I'm the Macho Man." And I went, "Oh yeah!" And he looked at me like he had no idea what the hell I was doing, what this strange man was shouting at him. I thought he was a bit young to know who the Macho Man was anyway. It's just a good job I didn't start shouting cream of the crop at him. Sorry, anyway, go ahead.
He would eventually become the knockoff Ric Flair, and he'd have a woo off.
Whoa! Which
is pretty good. So yeah, there are Lethal's time in TNA is checkered, but in really good ways. So speaking of which, the next match was very, very good. It was Robert Roode against Petey Williams in a 6-sided steel match. So basically, it was Petey Williams. This is before he would join up with Big Papa Pump and become Little Petey Pump, which was wonderful. And that's the very famous, you have 26% chance winning a sacrifice, like that promo.
Yes, yeah.
It'd be a couple of months before that was cut. That was cut in the summer. But Petey Williams would cut his hair and shave his head and start looking like Scott Steiner.
Other thing I didn't know about Petey Williams or about TNA in general was that it wasn't just Lance Storm in WCW. TNA had their own Team Canada.
Yes. It was a whole thing. Yeah, it was a whole thing. Scott D'Amore was the leader.
Every wrestling promotion has to have a Team Canada, because WWE had the Un-Americans, which is basically Team Canada, wasn't it? It was Lance Storm and a couple other guys.
Yeah, but there was just a lot of it was more than that as well. Christian was in the Un-Americans as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Christian was in it too, yeah. Because I do remember when we were slogging through that WCW 2000s pay-per-view arc, one of the few bright spots was Team Canada. Lance Storm coming out every time, making everybody stand for the entirety of the Canadian national anthem.
That was very good. But like TNA and Team Canada, that was their one of their really big arcs, and pretty much an early TNA as well. So this would kind of be at the tail end of it, where they would move away from it. But like faction warfare was always like a thing that TNA would do, but it would be over different things. So they'd have their Team America going against Team Canada going against Team America, but then you'd also have like it'd go into the main event mafia and stuff like that as well. So it just evolved. Really stupid thing that happened in this match that set up to the finish, which I have to call out because I need to say it now. Why is a hockey stick not allowed in a cage match?
Yeah, I had a couple
So
of
that was
questions
stupid. That was
about
stupid.
what the actual rules are
Yes.
in these cage matches.
Because basically PD Williams was winning, like decisively, and then he tried to use the hockey stick. The referee pulls the hockey stick off him, and that actually like leads to his direct downfall.
But even in the X Division match, and I didn't bring it up because I enjoyed the match so much. But even the X Division match, like at times they were like standing outside waiting on a tag. And I'm like, what are you doing? What's he going to do? Disqualify you? Like it's just get in there, kick someone in the head. Yeah, this was a fine match. I think this is one of the matches that could have happened not in a cage.
Yeah.
But what I did like with this, I really like Robert Roode. I never got to see much of Robert Roode. I only caught the kind of tail end of him in NXT. But really liked him here, and I loved that the match ended with a perfect plex. Like,
yes,
big pop from me for that.
Yes, no, Bobby Roode is great, and a really nice guy too. I got to meet Bobby Roode a couple of years ago, and he's such a nice guy. I did interview him as well. I'll try to find the audio for that and put it up on the feed. But always one of the mainstays of TNA, one of the great talents. It's kind of a shame his WWE run wasn't what it could have been, but you know, at least he got a good run in WWE. And people know how talented he is now. But definitely, like, this was peak Bobby Roode.
I'd also say that we're very fortunate that the TNA has such a classy and reserved and gentlemanly announcer team, because I can only imagine what some of WWF or WCW's announcers would have made of Miss Brooks' difficulties with her dress.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Don West and the Professor are very, are very much. See, here's the thing. I think the reason why is because Mike Tenay had to experience that in person, and he's like, "I'm never doing that again."
Mike Tenay, there's a moment in, I think it's actually the next match, Gail Kim and Jackie, where Gail Kim gets thrown over the announce table into Mike Tenay's arms, and you can see where he's almost looking at the camera, holding his hands up, going, "I'm not touching anything.
I'm doing nothing. I'm just trying to call the match." But look, one of the great things that was in TNA way before anywhere else, it was the first time I ever saw women in a cage match.
Yeah.
Never happened in WWE. It would happen eventually, but this was like, what, 2007? I mean, to put this into perspective, the women were having a Fulfill Your Fantasy lingerie match at Cyber Sunday at this time. You know, or Taboo Tuesday. Like, it really puts it into, when you say it like that, like, that's what the women's division was in WWE compared to this, which was an actual athletic, super brutal, hard hitting,
an actual wrestling match.
That started outside. They fought for ages and then went into the ring. And like, Gail Kim, she's great. Got to see her last year for a couple of minutes. Always like Gail Kim. It's great to know her, like, on first name basis. But she is just one of the talents of TNA and one of like the main figures in TNA. Like, when you think about her, Miss Jackie, yeah, she's grand. She's grand as Jacqueline. Grand as Miss Jackie.
She was okay.
She's okay, but here's the thing: she's always been okay.
Yeah,
Gail
Kim is
sensational. But the style that she worked was that ladder attitude era style, which would be a lot of brawling.
Yeah.
So I mean, it kind of works, but the woman in there doing all the work is Gail.
It's Gail. Yeah,
she's the one in there working.
I thought that Jackie actually dragged this match down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was really excited to see a Gail Kim match because she's only popped up in I think in kind of multi-mans and tags in the TNA shows we've been doing. So I was really excited to see a one-on-one with her. And she was really good.
You will. When we get to the Awesome Kong matches, that's when.
Yeah.
That's when you really see a
looking
Kim.
forward to those. And,
but the finish,
but a hell of a finish.
A hell of a finish, yeah. That's what kind of saved this for me. It went up a fair bit. Like the match itself started off quite well, went in the cage, kind of dipped a little bit, but it was kind of matching the cage until the end.
Yeah, I think it was. And again, I don't want to put it all on Jackie, but I think she just didn't gel with some of the more
wrestling parts
complex
of being a wrestler.
Wrestling stuff that Gail Kim was trying to do. You know,
because it's not her style. She never has been that kind of wrestler.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, but not to take a dump on the match or anything like that. It was still good.
What did you think of the next match? Actually, I'm interested with this because they are two guys which are really good wrestlers, but look quite different. One being Loki, who's known as Senshi, and the other being Austin Aries, who's known as Austin Starr, which is a very different look and a very different character than who he would be very famous for. But the lads are in there. They're in the cage. They're not really using the cage that much, which is kind of weird. And obviously Bob Backlund is there. So it's a very WWE nonsense kind of match. But what did you think about this when they actually got to wrestle?
Once the actual match started, I quite enjoyed this. I really liked Senshi's style, and I thought it meshed well with Austin. I keep going to say Austin Aries.
Call him Austin Aries.
Yeah, it meshed well with Austin Aries because Senshi did a real kind of very stiff striking and kicking kind of offense, and he had a couple of really cool kick attacks in it, and I loved how that was kind of counterbalanced by Aries, being kind of more of a traditional wrestler.
Yes.
Overall, though, it was one of the matches that could have just been a match.
I agree with that.
That's not to take it. I mean, like, do you know if every match had been a full-on cage match with them doing full-on cage, dives and spots and all that, it probably would have worn it out quicker than the way they did it. So again, I enjoyed this match. I actually really liked reading up on it because this is just before Aries basically packed it in with TNA and went off to Ring of Honor in a kind of sort of non what's the word I'm looking for? Well, in a non I don't want to say unprofessional, but people weren't happy with the way it went down, apparently.
That's fair. The next match is infamous here at this point. It's one of those. This is one of the points when. Okay,
the next two matches.
Okay, the next two matches, let's put it are infamous.
If this was your view of TNA, you would never go back.
It's true. Like, I don't want to say the shark was jumped, but they definitely got close. This is the exploding barbed wire incident. To use a modern parlance with AEW. Yeah. This is when you say I have TNA
PTNASD.
It's because of stuff like this where this was the first time it actually kind of showed its head a little bit, and it would get more common. But this is definitely, like, when you talk about TNA, the worst moments of it, these next two matches are in there for very, very good reason. So basically the premise of this next match is that James Storm and Chris Harris were part of America's Most Wanted, right? They were the TNA tag team. They were like the main tag team who won everything, and they were baby faces, whatever. Chris Harris would be the face remaining there. He would be turned on by James Storm. James Storm will become like a mega heel, and Chris Harris would basically flounder. He would leave then to go to WWE and be known as Braden Walker, and that's a whole meme in and of itself. But before he would leave, he would have this match, which would be to settle the feud because James Storm had hit Chris Harris with a beer bottle and blinded him. So they were like, okay, we're going to have a blindfolded steel cage match. And here's the worst part. It wasn't gimmicked. Like, they were, obviously they're the sacks that you can kind of see through, but still not gimmicked. So the match is about as good as you can have in this, but a lot of it is them just walking back and forward, falling over, and trying to use the cage for leverage. It's
I'll say bad. So before I go into this, what I will say in their defense is, and I haven't seen it, but apparently at the next pay-per-view they have a brilliant Texas Death match.
They do. Okay, before we get into it, my favorite part of the match is there's like a backdrop off the ropes, and James Storm's little hood falls off, and the ref runs over and puts it back on.
The hoods. So this is one of the many things that make this farcical. Actually, before we even get into the match specifically, when has a blindfold match ever been good? Why
it's never
would
good.
you book one?
It's never good.
They have never worked. They take away everything that makes wrestling good. You can't, like, they tell you, selling is 90% your face. You can't do any of that. You can't do any of the crazy moves because you're walking around, the ring with your arms out. It's comedy, but it's really bad comedy.
Here's the thing, though, right? I get why, because obviously thematically it fits in from the story.
Yeah, with the missing A and all that. Yeah,
but at the same time, it's comedy. Like, it looks it's too goofy. Like, okay, if someone tries to blind you and you hate his guts, the last thing you're going to want to do is a blindfold. You're going to be like, no, I'm going to beat you with a chair or something and try to blind you myself, not further handicap myself. And it's just, it makes no sense. It's farcical, and it's real bad. And the match is about as bad as you can imagine it to be. But here's an interesting thing, right? So obviously James Storm wins, so the heel wins, and it sets up the next match, which would be the blow off for the feud. But which one is worse? Not the next two matches, because the one you're referring to is the electrified cage match. That comes a little bit later. Do you think that's worse than this one, or do you want to wait until we get to it?
No, I think the electric cage match is worse. So we talk. In fact, to be honest, look, this was as bad as every blindfold match has ever been. So it's not particularly their fault. I think the problem was that it entered a whole new level of farce because the hoods kept falling off. Like, the hoods fell off their heads legitimately 7 or 8 times. And then it ends. The ending is like one of the guys kind of sneaking a look under his hood while the other guy is accidentally sticking a sharpshooter on the referee. But your hood's been off for the whole match. I also thought it was hilarious that at the very end, so like you say, every time the hood came off, the referee would scramble to try and put the hood back on them. But at the very end, after, who is it? Is it Storm wins?
Yes.
At the very end, after Storm wins, he knocks out Harris and he pins him. Storm gets out of the ring and the camera cuts back to Harris, who, whenever Storm knocked him down, he knocked the hood off again. And the referee's scrambling to put the hood back on him. And I'm like, the match is over, ref. Leave him be. Jesus. Was there a stipulation where if you lost, you have to keep this hood on forever? Let him go home.
The ref's just following him around, putting it on him when he's trying to get in the car.
The hood on him.
Oh my god, it's so funny. Right, look, well, we'll end the podcast, the radio segment of this podcast on a positive note. The next match was Christopher Daniels against Jerry Lynn. Look, this was also match in the cage, but by God, it was a very good match in the cage.
Yeah,
it was.
Definitely.
And Jerry Lynn is always great. Christopher Daniels is always great, and this was just a really nice palate cleanser of. It's a sandwich, right? It's
nonsense
It's a nonsense sandwich, but the meat is actually really good. It's just the bread that's nonsense. So the sandwich itself, if you can work through like if I got this sandwich, I'd take the bread off and just eat the meat.
Yeah.
That's kind of what this was here.
You'd be like, I'm on a no carb diet. I'll eat this delicious filling. Well, I'm not having that rank pumpernickel bread.
Exactly. But yeah, Christopher Daniels will pick up the win here in about 13 minutes, 14 minutes. So it was a very, very decent match.
Yeah,
but Martin,
between two really good, hard-hitting, obviously not old school at the time, but old school kind of wrestlers.
Yes.
The only thing I'd say about it, two established wrestlers who do a really good, solid, stiff, hard-hitting kind of match. The only thing I thought you'd really appreciate it was I had down in my notes here, Daniels does a better crossroads than Cody.
He does. Well, I mean, that, come on. Like, one thing I have to say before we go off the podcast. Actually, no, I'll save it. I'll save it for the podcast. Folks, if there's anything you want us to bring up and you're listening to us on Phoenix 92.5 FM, one, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to us on FM radio. But if you want to contact us, you can go over to thewrestlingrewind.com. It has our links to our social media, to our email, to our YouTube, to our Patreon. Anywhere you want to reach us, you can. We please ask that you like the show, you subscribe to it, and also you spread the word about the podcast. You can go to our Patreon, but best way to reach out to us is our social media or on YouTube, which we are back on. So, Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we jump over to the podcast?
No, I'm just hyped for Double or Nothing, where we're getting a barbed wire cage match, which hopefully will have less nonsense.
On that note, folks, we'll be back next week here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. Talk to you then.
See you for now.
You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 PM to 6 PM, and then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Alright, folks, welcome back to the Wrestling Rewind here on thewrestlingrewind.com, Nerd to Know Media, YouTube, and anywhere else podcasts can be made available. Thank you so much for continuing to listen to us here as we talk about TNA Lockdown from 2007. Martin, before we went on break, you were saying that Chris Daniels is better crossroads than Cody Rhodes, and yes, of course he does, because Cody Rhodes is terrible. And you know what? I'm really enjoying because we're recording this into 2024 for posterity, and it's really funny. We're like 2 months out from WrestleMania, and people are already sick of Cody Rhodes. It is wonderful. It's like exactly what I said would happen has come to pass.
Because it's exactly what happened to him in AEW. He insists on doing this. Do you know who he is? He's Superman. Superman's a hero I have never been interested in, because he's so clean cut. He's so black and white. There's no kind of internal struggle with him. There's nothing interesting about him. He's just the perfect good guy who always does the right thing. And AEW fans got sick of that, and WWE fans are going to get sick of it. Yeah,
I mean it is what it is. It's very, very. It must be very annoying for him. I was going back and I was doing the feed there today, and I did a show a couple of years ago with Adam Martin. We're going to have him on the show again soon, and we were actually talking about the first All In or All Out. What was All Out? Was it
All In? No,
All In.
All In. All In. Yeah.
And we're talking about that, and the little image that Adam had used was Cody winning the NWA title, and he was crying. And I mean, all this, and he was crying with Brandy. And I'm like, he's literally done the exact same thing another 2 times at 2 different companies. What is this guy's deal?
He's just a really emotional guy.
Did he not finish the story then?
Brandy makes him a cup of tea in the morning and he starts crying. I woke up this morning and all I wanted was a cup of tea, and I finally achieved it for my dad. My dad never got this cup of tea.
And I finished my story. My dad never had tea. But no, I was watching. I'm like, oh my god, I've seen this again. This happened. This is how WrestleMania went off the air. I'm like, this guy does the same thing and it doesn't work. I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Didn't work in NWA. Didn't work in TNA. Didn't work in AEW, which is a company he literally started, and it's not working in WWE. So I'm like, you know what?
He was never more over, or at least more kind of critically acclaimed than when he was a heel in New Japan.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, he just won't go heel. He refuses to do it. So
here's the thing. I think once the worm turns here and he actually like starts getting booed, which I mean, he was booed. He was booed consistently, not just by me. Yes, by me, but not just by me.
But he was booed in AEW as well, and
he was,
crowds turned on him, and he still wouldn't, like, whenever he started doing these big talks, like, you know, these big promos where he was kind of talking about his career and being real kind of vague about what he was doing and what he was going to do, and I was full sure he was on the verge. I was like, this is it. This is going to be the ultimate heel turn. And then he was like, no, I'm just going to go play somewhere else where I can be the good guy. He just won't turn heel. It's his own fault.
No, he will eventually. I mean, or he'll just leave. I don't think Cody Rhodes is going to be around very much longer. I really don't.
He has said in an interview.
Here's the thing. He's speed running this way too quickly. You know, I mean, it's just. And the thing about it is, it's like he hasn't really done anything to earn this. You know, it's like, okay, you went to some places, great. I mean, they all went to some places. I mean, AJ Styles is there, and he doesn't go on half as much as you do.
Let me check. So he's 38. Actually, his birthday's in June, so he's pretty much 39. I can't remember if it was 40 or 45. He said in the interview, but he did this interview where he said that he wants to be done with wrestling either by 40 or 45.
Yeah,
and that he's looking to go into politics, and that's why he doesn't want his character to do anything kind of immoral or whatever. So I mean, it would kind of make sense that he's speed running all this, and it is speed running. Like, it's mad, isn't it? Like,
no, you know, and maybe that's what it is. And the thing about that is, by doing that, you create this situation where people can't, because wrestling isn't something that just kind of happens. It's a long term. It is the ultimate long term storytelling avenue.
It never ends. So you have to have, like, your twists and turns along the way. Like, I mean, for God's sake, Hulk Hogan had to go heel.
Yeah.
Like, Hulk Hogan. He's the biggest babyface in the world.
But who also turns out to be the biggest heel?
Well, yeah, Terry Bollea, not a good guy.
Not a good guy. That's putting it really lightly.
Well, I mean, because Vince has upped the bar so much for what not a good guy is.
But you knew Vince wasn't a good guy. That's the thing.
Real Vince.
Oh, no wonder they were mates for so long.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, yeah, look, it's just one of the things where he's walked himself into this no-win situation where it's like, okay, either you annoy everybody to the point that they want you to leave, and then when you do leave, they're like, oh, thank God you're gone. You know, that's where it is, and that's where he's going. But at the same time, if it is kind of like, no, I'm just going to speed run this to get it out of my system, make money, and then go do something else, well, that's probably what it looks like. Because, I mean, people are sick of him already, like, to the point that they, every time you see, like, post up on whatever it is, they're just tearing them apart. It's actually really funny, but also kind of sad, because it's like, you're the champion and everybody hates you. This is not good. This is not going well.
Well, I mean, we discussed it the other week, and it doesn't help that we already know that the plan is for Brock and Reigns again at WrestleMania 41. So now we know we have a full year. Like, it doesn't matter who he faces over the next year. You know they're not winning. So
no,
you just got a full year of this.
See, I don't know. I think they will. I think they will. Remember, Vince isn't there. And this whole nonsense happened because WWE... Again, look, this whole nonsense happened because WWE reacted to the fans. And you never do that. Look, last time you did with Danny O'Brien, how did that get you? He's irrelevant. Wasn't that big of a deal. You know, they should have just stayed the course. And I maintain that. I mean, going with the fans, you get Kofi. Everybody wanted Kofi. What happened? Brock Lesnar beat him in 5 seconds. Irrelevant.
Yeah, well,
you know,
people didn't want that to happen.
No, but that's what happened. You know, and it's just like maybe let them finish the course of the. It's like being in a movie theater and you're like shouting at the movie for them to change it. That's gonna be bad, and it you know, it's impossible, but it would be really bad if like, oh yeah, this big story we're lining out, we're gonna change it in the last minute just to make you happy.
Is Cody on Crown Jewel?
I have no idea. I actively try to like avoid Cody Rhodes. I do not watch anything he's on.
See, this is what I mean. I can't like I don't watch the week to week. So
I think he is. Yeah. Oh wait, he is. He's going against Logan Paul. Oh my god, he's going against Logan Paul for the US title. Oh my god, why haven't we talked about that? He's going against Cody. He's going. So here's the thing: either he wins and becomes the US champion as well, or Logan Paul wins and becomes the world champion and the US champion. What are WWE doing? That makes no sense. Oh my god,
that's a disaster. Because Cody would love that US title. Like, he'd be all over that, you know, with the flag and everything on it. And
would he finish that story too?
But that's what I mean. He doesn't. That's do you know what that's going to be?
What?
That's just going to have to be some sort of screwy finish.
Yeah, it's going to be shenanigans.
Double knockout or DQ or. There you go. So I didn't watch Backlash, and I have absolutely no intention of watching Crown Jewel.
Logan Paul winning, I actually would be okay with, but I don't think
it'd be wild.
I mean, just to see Cody lose would be wonderful. And Logan Paul made me €100, so you know, what's Cody done for me? Kind of ruined WrestleMania a little bit. Nothing else, you know. But no, I mean, it has to be some kind of screwy finish. Like Backlash is quite good. I will say, actually, Backlash is worth a watch. But Crown Jewel, I'm competing on Sunday, so I'll be watching it on the bus to Cork. But other than that, I have nothing else to do for 3 hours, so that's when I'll be watching it.
Yeah.
But anyway, bottom line, folks, we don't like Cody Rhodes.
Well, but here's the thing: is I like him. I think he's a good wrestler. He just refuses to change his character.
He had the perfect character. Stardust damaged Cody Rhodes. Dashing Cody Rhodes. They were wonderful. I mean, he's regressed so much to not having a character. I feel like I'm a broken record here because, like, I said the exact same thing about Cena and it didn't do anything, so I don't particularly want to keep going on about it. But I can't believe this keeps happening.
I think that's what it is. He's the new Cena. So even though fans like me and you will never get behind that, he sells tons of t-shirts to children, and he can do all the, you know, the Make-A-Wish charity work, and he can do all the corporate events. You know, he looks good in a suit and everything.
No, he doesn't. He looks like a douchebag.
Well, but he looks like
the neck tattoo. It's the neck tattoo. That's the problem.
Yeah, but he looks like the kind of douchebag that wears a suit.
No. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. If he didn't have the neck tattoo, right, I'd agree with you. But he's ruined it now because it's like that fucking tattoo looks terrible.
Well, all you've got to do is just keep him in profile and only view him from the left. That's Patrick Pierce would only ever be photographed in profile because he thought that was his best side.
Oh, that's fair.
So maybe Cody Rhodes could take a lesson from one of Ireland's national heroes.
I mean, look, at least it would. Here's the thing, though, right? He could go back. I don't know. Look, we could sit here and fancy book it. Anything we'd fancy book would be better than what we're getting. It's just a shame because it's like
genuinely, like, so we know this Rock Roman thing is happening. So if you could fantasy book it, like, who do you put Cody in feud with over the next year that's even mildly interesting?
The Dole Q. I just don't want him to wrestle anymore. I just want him gone. But no, genuinely, I mean, like, all joking aside, I think having Cody be injured in some way and having some kind of psychotic break where he starts going through and cause him to lose the belt, and having him going through like he could even go through his gimmicks and then come out as something else different. Would be, or even like loop back around to being like a proper heel where he's like, I've realized that I am a heel, and go, and then like leaning into his current gimmick but like really healing it up. I think that'd be really interesting, you know, kind of doing like a American Psycho kind of thing where it's like he believes he's the good guy and he's better than everybody else and he's going to go do it. But I think doing it that way would be interesting because he's always kind of been on that fringe of sanity as a heel. Like Dashing was wonderful, but it was so dark. Damaged was obviously dark, and Stardust was weird as all hell. But I think doing something like that would be much more entertaining than I'm a good guy. My dad was Dustin Rhodes, was Dusty Rhodes. I finished my story. What are you talking about? You're a grown man.
Yeah. It's
I just hate it so much. I really do. I'm sorry.
Do you hate it more than the Team 3D v LAX electric cage match?
You know what? Yeah. Okay. So there's a promo beforehand, right, where Team 3D have the WCW title, the WWE tag team title.
Actually have them on them.
They have them on them, and I popped, and they have the ECW ones as well. Now remember, we haven't seen those belts in 6 years, 7 years at this point. I popped huge at the time, and I popped again watching this. I think that is the coolest promo I have ever seen.
Take it they're replicas.
No, they're the real ones.
Oh, did they just leave with them?
Well, no, they give them the belts.
Oh, what do you get, like a copy?
Yeah, no, like, sure. Miz, there was a really cute video on Miz's Instagram. I don't follow Miz, but I saw it, where his daughters are really interested with the new tag team belt, and they love it. And he's like, well, what about, because they go to the belt room, you know, where they have all the belts that him and Maurice have won. He's like, well, what about the world title? And they're like, no, we like this one. And then they're like, what are you like? And they like the butterfly one. They're like, but this is the one that The Rock held. And they're like, no, we don't like that one. And it was a cute video, but he has a whole room with all the belts. So like all wrestlers, they have like the belts that they won. I think that's what the plates are for now, where they give them the plates rather than the belt. Oh. But yeah, I think they give them like a copy of the belts if they won it, or if they won it a certain amount of times. But like if you think about it here, ECW went out of business and they had those belts and they won the WCW belts in WWE, so obviously they just gave them to them. But yeah, they actually had them, and Rhino in TNA actually had the original ECW belt, and he set it on fire to be like, this is I'm the last ECW champion, and then set that one on fire, which was a cool promo too. But
oh, that's class.
This was a cool promo. I popped huge for it. I love seeing those belts. I think it was just like, oh man, this is awesome, because obviously LAX were supposed to be like the best tag team of all time, which, I mean, there's an argument to be made for it, but Team 3D were like, no, we're the best tag team of all time. So despite, I did not hate this for that promo. The match itself, yeah, it was awful. It was real bad, but this promo was awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, I liked the promo, and I liked
the belts.
It was really cool seeing
and
I
really liked the belts. Yeah.
This match, however, was bad on. It was bad on multiple levels. Okay, so firstly,
it was bad on multiple levels.
Multiple levels. So firstly, as an actual match, it was very limited because the Dudleys are kind of walking brawlers, and when they're confined, not only confined to the ring, but confined to the ring, you know, to such a degree where you can't even touch the cage because it's supposedly electrified.
Here's my question. How did Team 3D get away with just being on a pay-per-view with WWE's property for 3 different franchises? So, like, there had to be a cease and desist, right? Why do you have our belts on a different show?
I suppose they didn't do anything. Like, it's not like Medusa or whatever, where she showed up and threw it in the bin. You know, they were kind of holding them as like things to be admired. Like, look at
I guess you're right. I guess you're right. Yeah, that makes sense.
But maybe 2007, maybe it just wasn't worth WWE's while to sue them. It's like, so what? So, 40 people saw it on pay-per-view. Who cares? Maybe they're like, it would cost us more to ring our lawyers than whatever business we think we've lost.
To type up the letter would cost more money. Yeah, probably. But you know what? Here's the thing, right?
If we're going to present this pay-per-view as evidence in court, it means we'll have to buy it. That's not worth the...
But here's the thing, right? Like, I didn't realize how heavy belts were until fairly recently. And I think it's because of stuff like this, where they're throwing around 3 belts like it's not. LAX come out, and LAX are great, like they really are, but Hernandez is wearing a chain and his belt is attached to the chain that's around his neck, and it looks like he doesn't weigh anything. And then you pick up one of the belts and you're like, oh my god, that's...
Well, yes, they were, in that
heavy.
promo, they were carrying
3 of them.
3 or 4 belts each, was it? Because they had some indie belt as well.
Yeah. They were 4, yeah.
Yeah, my god. You know what's great is the Bang Bang Gang, they have the unified trios title. So the AEW trios title and the Ring of Honor trio title. And whenever they beat the Acclaimed for the AEW trios title, the Acclaimed had their own kind of custom belts.
Yes.
So now, even though they only have 1 championship, they walk around with 9 belts. They carry all the versions of the belts with them everywhere. But they have like a wee trolley. So they walk out down the ramp, like holding up the belts, and then they put them all in this wee trolley and they wheel the trolley down to the ring.
But that makes sense because they're heavy.
Yeah, because they're so goddamn heavy.
I didn't realize they were that heavy, and I think it's because of stuff like this where you're like, yeah, it looks like it's nothing, and then you pick one up and you're like I bought the European title and I was carrying it around. I was like, it's grand, but then when you give it, like, you hand it to someone, they're like, damn, that's heavy. You're like, yeah, it is quite heavy. Trying to bring it home in the suitcase.
It gives you a new appreciation for belt shots in wrestling, doesn't it?
Yeah, that too.
I always thought belt shots were a wee bit weedy. It's like, that doesn't look like, it's not like swinging a chair. But no, if someone like ran and dove into you with one of those things, yeah, that'd mess you up.
So me and Dave were sitting at WWE World, and I bought the belt, because it was the European title. I had to, and he's like, "Let me just do something for a second." I'm like, "What?" And he hit himself in the face with it, and I was like, he's like, "Ow, that really hurt." I was like, "Yeah, you just hit yourself in the face with a belt." He goes, "I just want to see how much, if it actually hurt." I'm like, "Did it?" He goes, "Yeah."
Big steel plate bolted onto leather.
So there you go. I mean, when he's on the show next, we can ask him why he did that.
But now we know what we haven't seen Dave in 3 weeks.
That's definitely why he did that. Okay, so moving on to the match. So this is obviously an electrified steel cage, right? So everyone around the ring has like these special.
It's not obviously
gloves.
An electrified steel cage. We're told it's an electrified steel cage. There's nothing obvious about it.
Well, no, there are. There's these special things that they have like connected to it, and then the commentators are like, "Well, these are the generators that are making it electric."
Oh yeah, the big. It almost looked like a
fire hose or something.
Plumbing, yeah.
Yeah, it did look like plumbing. Yeah,
so strange.
So that's what's generating the power, and so basically, when someone would be knocked into, so they went back and forward, and the actual cage match is pretty severe, and there's like Devon is bleeding within 5 minutes, which is hilarious. It's like he's bleeding profusely at certain points, but it wouldn't be until midway through the match where we start seeing the electrified. So Martin, pray tell, what happens when someone gets electrocuted?
Well, at one stage, I think is it Bubba Ray does like a power bomb directly.
Brother Ray
does a power bomb directly into the cage, and like so far up to now, we've seen a lot of guys getting thrown towards the cage and stopping at the last minute, and people like holding their hands out to see if they can like force someone else onto the cage.
Yeah.
And the reason they're so afraid of touching the cage is because they all suffer from epilepsy. because they know that what happens when you get thrown into the cage is that somebody in production frantically turns the lights on and off. And obviously, if you're epileptic, that's very dangerous. So that's what they're afraid of.
So you mean to tell me that they weren't actually getting electrocuted?
But do you know what? Like, I can accept that because it's wrestling. But you
know what's silly though, right?
Have sparks or something appear.
Hernandez at one point goes to the top of the cage. That's supposed to be electrocuted to put Devon through a table. Yeah. And he's not affected at all by it, but the lights are going on and off. You're like,
Devon at one stage climbs out of the ropes to climb up in the turnbuckle to do like the was up or whatever.
Yeah.
And Devon's a big guy, and as he's climbing the turnbuckle, every step of the way he is dragging his arse along the full length of the cage. You can see his arse pushing the cage out as he climbs the turnbuckle. Totally impervious, big rubber hole on him. Totally, totally impervious to the electricity.
But the lights didn't even go on and off.
And the lights didn't even go on and off. Like there's one or two scenes where guys get knocked down. I think one of the LAX guys does this, where he gets knocked down and he's like selling it and he's lifting himself back, like he's grabbing the ropes to pull himself up, and then at one stage he grabs the cage to pull himself up, and then he remembers, it's like, oh, and he pretends his hand gets electrocuted.
So what would you have rathered here? Would you have rathered like anything, or would you have liked them to actually like electrocute each other?
Look, I don't think like you can do real time electrocution because it doesn't look like, I don't know if you've ever been electrocuted, but unless
it isn't very like cinematic. It's like, oh, that sucks.
You kind of just go stiff and you fall over, unless you're talking about massive amounts of ampage where you will get sparks and that.
Well, that's called murder.
Yeah. So what they should have done is they should have gimmicked this thing so that whenever someone hits the cage, we get sparks of some sort. And we know they had them because instead of using the sparks on the cage match, in the next match, in the Lethal Lockdown one, whenever the roof of the cage is coming down, they're blasting sparks everywhere. And I'm like, you couldn't have taken one of those pyros, just one of them, and put it on the side of the cage for the electric match, just to give some sort of visual indication of electrification.
They only had so much money, dude. Come on.
So, I mean, for me, genuinely, this is worse than the exploding ring. Because
no, listen. I mean,
it is because the only way the exploding ring would have been worse is if when the ring exploded, they just had a sound recording going boom.
No, like, okay, at least the match itself wasn't too bad, and I mean there were still some good spots in it and that, and you did get what you paid for. They turned the lights on and off, and it made like a noise. With the explosion cage match, with the explosion ring, the match was okay.
The match was great.
No, hold on. The match, it was. I wouldn't say it was great. It was okay. It was definitely decent, right? But they promised an exploding ring. Like we have a reference for what an exploding cage match looks like. No, sorry. Why am I saying cage match? Well, actually, that happened in what's the American one called? The MTV one called?
Oh yeah, but that was put Wrestling X.
It happened in Wrestling Side X. So
that's all put in as a post.
Exactly, yeah. No, but that happened anyway. So no, we have reference for what an exploding death match looks like. We've seen them, so I think that's what everyone was expecting. And then when you just see like sparklers that you'd give to like little girls running around, pixies, it was
complete dud. But
it was a bit much.
But here's why the electric ring is worse.
Okay,
the exploding ring was a complete dud. But it was balls up. Like the pyro company that they hired in to do it made a total balls of it. Like Tony Khan didn't pay them he refused to pay them because of how bad of a job they did and how it wasn't anything like what they showed him in the run through they did before the show. So
sorry. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing at I just went back and watched the power bomb into the cage and it's really funny. It's so funny. Sorry.
So the
Look.
exploding ring is bad, but it's a balls up.
Yeah.
This is worse because this is terrible and it went exactly as planned. This is
They
meant to look like this.
They did try their best though.
I think it would have been very easy to set up some sort of thing that just just point them out so nobody actually gets electrocuted, but some sort of thing that sparks as they get thrown into it.
Like, I don't know.
I love that was so the first big
The
spot
power
into
bomb.
the cage was Brother Ray throwing one of the LAX guys. The other one was one of the LAX guys gets kind of catapulted into it.
Yes.
And grabs onto the cage and then does a full cartoon, like, buzz, like bouncing back and forth, holding on to the cage.
But Devon gets thrown into it too. He gets like a razor's edge into it. And he holds onto it too, and like he's doing the whole big flip. But Devon always oversold like a fish. But I think, look, I mean, the fact that he's like covered in blood at the end of it and stuff, it does actually look pretty cool. I would say this match itself is a little bit better. It's just a little bit goofy when you're like, come on. It's easier to suspend your disbelief with this one than it is with the exploding ring. Because, I mean,
it's easier to abandon your disbelief with this one and just accept that it's nonsense.
Yeah, because it's nonsense from like the bell ringing, when they're all out there with like, the gloves that they have, right? They're not electrical gloves. They're gloves that you use to falcon. Now, here's how I know that. Right? I have a bunch of wild cats outside. We had to deal with a bunch of wild cats, and my kitten was a wild cat. And in order to like domesticate her, we had to get falconing gloves because she would eat your hand. So they're falconing gloves that they're using. They're not even like electrical rubber.
Maybe they're falconing gloves for Zapdos Pokemon trainer.
For Pokemon.
Yeah. So it's a falconing glove for the legendary electric Pokemon.
But look, this match, I don't know. I enjoyed this match, and Team 3D, they got their big win. It was the kind of the belt collector gimmick that they did. You got to see all the Team 3D stuff. But here's
the other thing I meant to ask you about this. Maybe you know some of the sort of after story. But this pay-per-view was when NWA announced that they were ending their partnership with TNA. So what happened now? The Dudleys or the Team 3D just won the NWA Tag Championships. Did they go on to defend them in NWA? Were they just stripped of them?
So here's what happened. That's a very good question, actually. Yeah. So all these belts were the NWA belts.
Yeah.
So what happened, I think it was the next night on Impact, or the next, whenever they taped Impact next after this, they were given the TNA belts. And the TNA belts actually look really, really nice. So no, they weren't stripped because technically they won the NWA TNA titles. They didn't win the NWA World Tag Team belts.
Okay, so these were kind of like a cross promotional. They weren't the NWA tag titles.
Yeah, like they did win them, but they didn't win them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay, like, so they weren't on NWA
no, because there was no NWA. NWA was basically TNA.
Oh.
So those belts were kind of not held in abeyance.
So NWA wasn't even running their own shows at this stage.
No, they were running with. Well, they kind of were, but they kind of weren't. I mean, I had there's a good interview up there with Billy Corgan recently where he's like, the promotion had no value, and I gave it value again, which is true. But basically, they stripped them. They stripped them, but did strip them. They're still listed as winning the NWA titles because they technically did, but at the same time, they won the TNA titles, the inaugural TNA titles. So that's what they kept.
Love that. Yeah. Kind of a Schrodinger's title.
Yeah, no, but that's kind of what happened to everybody. So technically, anyone who won on this card, and had a belt, I think there was.
Because Christian has an NWA title in this, doesn't he?
Yeah, sorry, I thought the belt was defended. It wasn't. Yeah, so technically Christian, when he gives up the title to get the TNA title.
This is quite like outside of the wrestling. Like this is quite historic show in terms of, it was the end of the Austin Aries going to Ring of Honor thing, and it was the end of the NWA alliance.
So I'm having a look here at it actually, and if you see how it's listed, he's a one-time Impact World Champion, but that's still counted as the TNA run. Well, it's funny because the current NWA champion is EC3, and he got a start in TNA, so it all loops back around, right?
Is NWA Power still on the go?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. All right.
I just haven't watched it in a long time. But anyway, so that's the kind of lore. This will be the last time you see them on TNA. I didn't really like those titles, but I do really, really like the TNA titles. But I do think the NWA belt looked really, really good on Christian. So
yeah, I get the kind of historical importance and the prestige and the value of the NWA titles, just because of how far back they go.
Yes.
But they are ugly as sin.
They really, really are. But it works really well for Christian. You know who Christian is? I'm just going to put this out there. Christian is
your father.
No, he's Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes.
He's Cody Rhodes done right. That's who he is.
Cody Rhodes done heel.
He's a fully realised Cody Rhodes. He has his little group of floozies. It's perfect. But
Christian doesn't cry every time he wins a title.
He doesn't. He does not. He might run away and act like a chicken, heel, but he's no coward, and he doesn't cry. Unlike Cody, who cries every time about everything.
Double or Nothing, Christian versus Swerve Strickland for the world title.
Even though Swerve's going to win, I wish Cody would win, because they're just going to... Because, there's no point. Swerve's reign is a joke. But, yeah, it is. It
isn't. It's awesome.
No, they're just building up for Will to win it. That's what's happening.
That's headcanon.
No, that's going to happen, man. I'm telling you.
That doesn't matter. That hasn't happened.
I tell you, it's going to happen.
Terrible based on what you think might happen.
I don't know. It's just it's like it's set up to fail, But if you like it, I can see why. I like Star Strickland. I just wish he had something to do. But
it's the world champion.
He's not doing it. He's in there with Christian, and I want Christian to win. That's not a good thing.
Dynamite this week
with the flamethrower. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
No, but before, I'm talking about the Swerve Strickland Christian segment. It was amazing.
I did. Yeah, because that's Christian Swerve Strickland are amazing. That's what I'm saying. It's annoying. I wish we got that all in. That'd be cool. But my point is, Christian Cage is on fire at this point. He's one of the main top guys. He debuted, had his main run, won the belt, and he's in there now with a recent addition of Kurt Angle. AJ Styles really starting to cook now. Rhino, who's phenomenal. Sting, and good old Jeff Jarrett. So how happy were you with this lineup?
This main event match. Talk about a killer's row. But I just thought it was hilarious that you have 10 gays, 9 genuine gays ranging from top gays to legitimate multi-company superstars.
Yeah.
And Tomko.
You were going to say Tomko. I was like, which one of these
Kurt
guys?
Angle, Samoa Joe, Rhino, the Icon, Sting, Christian, AJ Styles, Big Papa Pump Steiner, the Legend Abyss. Tomko was here as well.
Tomko there as well. We had no one else. We had to make the numbers.
That bit in the It Crowd where they're going, you can have my axe. They're playing D&D, and they're going, oh, you can have my axe and my crossbow and my staff. And then Roy goes, and I'm also here. I just see Tomko going, and I'm also here.
That's it though. Tomko. We told this story many times, but I love how Tomko's story in wrestling kind of ends. It's the perfect bookend for the man, because it's he was always Christian's floozy, and it's the one thing. Here's the thing, Tony, right? Tony Khan needs to go and like buy Tomko. If he's in if he's still in prison, go in and buy him out and be like, look, I own you now. You're gonna come live with me.
Is he the guy who robbed the Burger King?
Yeah,
rubs in the toilet.
Yeah, so
they're like, the cops are coming, man. He's like, nah, I'm just gonna, gonna load up some smack before they get here.
You know that movie, The Goonies? You know, you're gonna come live with me now. That's what Tony Khan needs to do. He needs to go into the jail and go, I'm buying Tomko, and then brings him in and has him just as Christian's floozy, because that's the one thing that Christian is missing. Justice for Tomko.
And look here. This is so apart from Tomko. It's a genuine hell of a lineup. For the both teams, Team Angle and Team Cage. And the only other thing, because this is a really good match, and I'm more than happy to put it over. But the only other thing I want to make fun of before that is when Jeff Jarrett comes out for his entrance, his pyro goes off, and his pyro blows his guitar apart. The other way his guitar is it's obviously gimmicked to fall apart when he hits someone with it. He comes out and he holds it up, and the pyro goes off behind him, and it must just be the tiniest shockwave because the whole back falls off the guitar as he stood there holding it up. And then he just quietly drops it and throws it away as he's walking down the ramp.
It's like, oh no. Here's the thing: have we ever seen Jeff Jarrett play the guitar?
No, because even when he does his single, well, for a start, he's not even singing in it.
Yeah, it's the Road Dogg, but
he's just singing. He's not even playing the guitar in it.
It's just such a weird thing that he's maintained it his entire career, and he's never once held it to play or anything like that.
I think he would have learned just 3 chords,
just anything,
just so he could go out and go bum bum bum. But isn't there a girl in NXT who carries around a skateboard everywhere and has never skated?
I don't know why they get them to do that. It's so silly.
Bret Hart refused to do it. They wanted him to be Cowboy Bret Hart, and they wanted him to come out with a bull rope and come out and horse and all that. And he's like, no, I'm not a cowboy, and I don't know how to properly crack a bull rope. So I'm not walking around with it like it's a gimmick and not a real thing.
That's fair.
And he just refused to do it. Yeah.
So what happens here is the rules of this match are they walk in one by one, and then every couple of minutes the teams kind of come out. So it's kind of like War Games, but not really. And then the match doesn't officially start until the last person comes in, and then they lock the cage and lower the roof down with all the weapons. So the match itself, it's okay. It starts getting really interesting though when the roof does come down. The only thing I'll say about it is, because it kind of is War Games, it would benefit from a second ring because it gets very packed in there very quickly.
I thought this had a great start and a great end. I just thought it sagged a bit in the middle, but that's because you had everyone 10 in there. Guys in one ring.
And you know what it is? You know the one thing that I think they would figure this out later on, but the thing that throws me going back and watching this, because they'd only been doing this a couple of times, so you wouldn't really get time to work this out. You know, you kind of had to just, right, lads, we're doing this once a year. Let's see what happens. You know, that's kind of how these matches were done. But there's bits in it where they're just standing waiting for the lads to do their stuff.
Yeah, because you have to.
So awkward.
You have to stand along the side to allow room in the middle, and some of them are genuinely great spots, but you can kind of see
they're all just watching them.
Contrivance in them, yeah. Steiner does a really awesome top rope Frankensteiner, which you didn't expect from him at that stage.
No, the worst one is they're all down. They're all down, and it's AJ and Kurt in the ring, and Tomko isn't even trying to sell. He's just kind of like on one knee looking. It's like, what are you doing, Tomko? I mean, come on, move, man. I mean, this is his MO, right? He's goes to the Burger King and just starts shooting
He's just
drugs in the way.
I was just saying that he's just sitting there thinking, another 10 minutes and then I can head to Burger King. Get whopped out.
Do you think when Tomko robbed the Burger King? I don't actually know which restaurant. We didn't figure out which restaurant it was at one point, but it's funnier to imagine it as a Burger King. Do you think he like got food?
Oh yeah,
he's robbing the place. He's like, by the way, I'll have a Whopper. And
you don't want to hit the horse on an empty stomach. You know.
Do you think he did it first?
I
went up at the same time. He paid, took his money back.
I just can't believe he was reduced to robbing a Burger King. Like, how financially irresponsible with you? How did you manage to spend all your TNA money?
Well, look, I know. I don't know why he didn't go home. That's the thing. I don't understand it. I'm like, you would have got away with it. Oh, Tony, you need to give that man money. Come on. He needs to go, and it needs to be his gimmick. You know, where when he's not resting, he's at a Burger King trying to rob it.
Yeah. Whenever Dynamite comes into a city, like all the Burger Kings in it should put up like, do not admit
this man is
Tomko. Do not allow this man.
Oh, it'd be so funny. So funny.
I tell you, there's a couple other. So, like I said at the start, this is really good. It got a wee bit sagged in the middle a wee bit just when you had 10 guys in the ring.
There was a great gore. There was a great gore spot where Rhino gores Tomko out of the ring through his door. Yeah, it was very good.
So there was actually 2 spots in a row there, and then they had some really innovative ways of kind of thinning the ring out so that the guys in the ring could wrestle. So Angle and AJ Styles climb onto the roof
in the most athletic way I've ever seen someone climb a cage.
Oh, AJ, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's unreal.
He just leaps and curls his body up into it. But
it's
yeah,
like he does like a chin up through the cage.
Yeah, it was
that's
wild.
unbelievable. Yeah.
But so Tomko was standing at the cage door and Rhino gores him like out of the ring, clean through it. It
breaks the door.
It's sensational.
Rhino has the best gore or the best spear finisher ever. He really does.
Legitimately does. And I think it's because he just full on
like
spears them. But so Tomko's down, selling for it for ages, and then he just about gets up. But the next thing, Samoa Joe does the same thing. He dives clean through the ropes and out the door and on.
He just yeets himself through it.
It's awesome.
Also, points to Christian Cage for taking a double choke slam on Thumbtacks with a bare back.
Yeah.
Oh man,
looked really vicious. And by that stage, the ring had cleared out a bit, so you could do all those spots, and they looked much less contrived. You know, they looked really good.
Here's the thing. I don't know why. Okay, so Abyss sets up the Thumbtacks, gets a black hole slam on Jeff Jarrett beside the Thumbtacks. Doesn't put him through the Thumbtacks, which would make sense. That was silly.
What was that? Just a botch, do you think, or was Jarrett like, "I'm not going into the Thumbtacks"?
I think it was Jeff Jarrett being like, "I'm not doing that," which is fair. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it either, but it's just kind of silly. It's like you literally set them up yourself, Abyss. They're yours.
They're your Thumbtacks.
You put them in there.
Yours to do what you will with. But wasn't there like a kind of a running joke about Abyss that he was always setting up Thumbtacks and then always getting put through them himself?
Yeah, but here's the thing. I don't know why he didn't do that. It just makes no sense. But we did get a second guitar. Did you notice that? It wasn't the one that Jeff brought. It was a second guitar.
Thumbtacks.
Filled with Thumbtacks. That was a cool
someone
spot.
had obviously put duct tape on the back of this one to hold it together.
It's like, come on, baby, hold together.
So Angle and AJ are up on the roof of the cage, battling away. The roof, it's not that sturdy, so they're not doing a whole pile. But then we get this awesome punch from Angle, sends AJ in a legitimately terrifying flip off the cage, just clean off the cage, out to the side of the ring, and onto a pile of guys. No table, no crash mat, no nothing.
No, and the way it was shot was super scary too.
Because the camera was just below. It was almost a wee bit like the the angle you see of Foley coming off the cell, the second one, not the big one from above, the one from below, legitimately terrifying. Like a ballsy spot. Fair play to AJ for taking that one.
So I just noticed when Double J hits Abyss after that hits him with the guitar covered with thumbtacks inside it, there's no strings on that guitar. And I always thought the guitar spot with strings looked a lot better because it looks kind of silly without strings. Why do you think they didn't bother restringing the guitars?
I think maybe Jeff said if there's no strings in it, people will stop asking why I don't play it.
Maybe.
So.
I mean, that's the better answer than what I have, which is nothing.
I mean, the strings, it's not as if having the strings on it would have made it more difficult to pour the thumbtacks in it. Like, whenever I played guitar, I was constantly dropping the fucking pick into the guitar between the strings. So, like, you definitely could have poured the thumbtacks into it.
Maybe the strings were just too expensive?
Yeah. Maybe the budget just wouldn't stretch.
It's like this guitar bay won't even hold together for my entrance. If the pyro's too loud, it can't take the being
lads,
strung.
We can have a guitar with strings, or we can have a real, genuinely, fully electrified cage. Which is it going to be?
I mean, Tomko's nearly about to go to the Burger King. It's that high. We can't keep him here.
We're being like Tomko's got a smack dividend written into his contract, so like we have to send Dixie out to see if she can find some tar.
You know, it's a shame, right? He's retired. He retired in 2016.
Is he still knocking about though? Like he's alive and well, and
yeah, he's still alive. I just had to make sure that we were having a lot of fun at his expense.
And clean. I hope he's clean. And
it doesn't say it doesn't say that. But yeah, he's still alive. We think.
Well, that's good. That's like you know what it's like here whenever we're talking about a wrestler who's been like off TV for more than 10 minutes. You're like, oh, probably dead.
Probably dead.
Probably dead.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's very, very true. But no, I think Abyss, not Abyss. I think Tomko would be a fine addition to TNA. Sorry, to
no, you said TNA. You can't take it back.
To AEW. They should have a TNA faction in AEW. I thought that's what was going to happen, but they don't. That's a shame. Anyway, so Martin, what did you think of your first exposure to Lockdown, to a real TNA high vintage pay-per-view?
If you watch this for nonsense, like watch this because you know it has so many famously TNA spots in it, you'll have a good time. As a pure wrestling pay-per-view, X Division opener's awesome. Several of the matches during the pay-per-view, while not really benefiting from being in a cage, are very good matches. And the main event's kind of worth watching purely, like even just for the star power alone in it. Like it is 9 top guys and Tomko. And you know you have the addition of the cage and all the weapons and it's worth seeing. The 2 terrible matches are hilariously terrible. Like so, there's even fun to be had in them. I definitely, if you're in a mood for crack, this is a couple of cans and throw this on.
Absolutely. I think it's one of those shows where you know it's the wheels haven't fallen off TNA yet. It still has a lot of really, really good TNA stuff. Yeah, the goofy stuff is extremely goofy, but at the same time, there's a lot to like, and it's still vintage TNA. Obviously, the peak years are 2000, late 2003 into 2005, 2006, and late 2007 is when it starts. The bad in this show becomes the norm. So we're kind of in the late the late era
Well, there
of
are-
heyday TNA.
Yeah, well, there are multiple times during this show, there are audible "Fire Russo" chants from the crowd.
It's true. Because, like, again, everyone here was paying. They weren't in the Impact Zone. These are all
Yeah.
folks that paid money to go and see the show. And the thing about it is, I don't know if it was sold out, but the crowd was full. It wasn't an empty show.
6,000 people there.
6,000 people. It was a
and they were
small
hot.
arena, but they were hot for the whole thing. So they liked what they liked. They didn't like what they didn't like, but what they didn't like was deservedly to not like. But again, even with the electrified steel cage match, I really like that promo. I think sorry, go on.
I know. I was just gonna say, like the arena itself, like it everything looked really good. Like it felt like a pay-per-view. They really benefited from getting out of the Impact Zone and moving it around the country. Which and we've praised a couple of times now their new kind of business model of filming several shows in a row, but moving those filming sessions around the country and kind of having them as kind of mini pay-per-views for the live audience, but broken into TV shows for the viewers at home. So like you can kind of see. I kind of like watching TNA and seeing where they're kind of feeling their way through, and they hit on a good idea and they kind of keep it, and you can see it several years later. So it was interesting in that regard.
Absolutely. The only match I can't really defend here, and I can't. It's very difficult to defend this one. The blindfold match.
Yeah.
It's the only one where I'm like, yeah, no, there's
Well, it's just because it's never worked.
It doesn't work here. It doesn't work either here. It just doesn't. It's the only match where I'm like, what were you thinking? Genuinely.
Like even back as far as I think it was at WrestleMania 3 where Jake the Snake had a blindfold match. Can't remember who he's against, like the Honky Tonk Man or something. But the two of them have a blindfold match and they wear those hoods. And at one stage during the match, Jake obviously has an itchy nose. So he puts his hand up the hood to scratch his nose. And when he does, you can clearly see his hand in the hood. So it's obvious that it's not a blindfold. It's just like a mesh that he can clearly see through. As he puts his hand up and you can fully see his hand.
It's like you've ruined this entire thing in a second. But yeah, look, it is what it is. I enjoyed it. I'm glad you did as well, Martin. Thank you to everybody who listened. I mean, if nothing else, we do try to pick out the best of TNA and avoid the worst of TNA, which we can do. We have done, and it's definitely not as bad as the worst of WCW, which, oh God. Martin, is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, it's just hyped for Double or Nothing, which makes no sense because by the time people hear this, it'll be over. I'll be lying somewhere extremely hungover.
Well, folks, we are going to try something a little bit different. We're going to pop shows up on our YouTube, pretty much before they go out anywhere else. Again, if you haven't checked that out, go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com and you can find a link to the YouTube there, or you can just search in Nerd to Know Media and you'll find them on YouTube. Also, as I said, they're also on Spotify, True Penny Channel, and on Phoenix 92.5 FM is where you get the first hour on FM radio. So for myself, for Dave, for Martin, we will see you next week, and have a good one.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.